Well, hello, friend. Thanks for stopping back by today in the shop. We have this beautiful Street Glide on the lift. We're going to be doing a lot of things to it. New tires, a new charging system, but more importantly, new bars. So we're going to put some extended bars on this bike, and I thought you'd like to come along and see how that goes. Now, if you watched any of my other videos, you've seen me do charging systems before on touring bikes. Well, actually, I think Softails, but kind of the same thing. So I won't be redundant, but I will be shooting the video on the bars. So I guess this video is more of how to do bars. Though I'm going to start with doing all the other stuff first. And then when I come back here in just a second, we'll get into the bars. So welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. Now I got to tell you, when this bike first came in, I was nervous. This is a Street Glide, 9,000 miles, not a speck on this thing. Now it's a little dusty where it's been sitting in the shop waiting on parts, but there is nothing, there's no flaw in this bike. And here's the kicker. This is a 2006. That's right, the first year the Street Glides came out, and it's in showroom condition. I just can't, I'm nervous. I have to be careful. So we're going to get into these bars and show you what we got to take off to get them off and go from there. Oh, and while I got your ear holes, let me thank you for all the well wishes and prayers and just comments on my dad and his wreck. He's healing. He's doing better. He is taking it easy, surprisingly. So that's good. So I just want to say thank you, guys. I didn't post that video thinking that many folks would respond and watch it. That wasn't my intentions of posting it. I just know a lot of you guys were invested in the chopper. And as we built it and got it road ready and on the road, I just thought you might like an update and give you a chance to, you know, kind of think on my dad and give him the well wishes that you guys have. So thank y'all so much. Even had some YouTubers reach out to me and say, hey man, I just stumbled upon you and didn't know you were here and love to get together. And I was like, what? That's pretty cool. So what I found out that I already knew before, it just helped me to verify. The biker community is awesome. It's like the car community, but a whole lot, I guess, more, connected or more friendly. I don't know the word, but how many of you been out riding, seen the guy pulled over on the side of the road, his helmet sitting down on the ground? We almost all pull over. Hey man, can I help you? What do you need? I got some tools. It's just a really cool community. It's a family, and I'm just happy to be part of it. So let's get to work on these bars and get to fixing and some maintenance on all this other stuff. So here's some things we're doing to the bike and charging system. Of course, the Cycle Electrics, which is just awesome, guys. You're going to upgrade your charging system. Cycle Electrics the way to go. We also upgraded with the new style rotor. Anytime I do this, I recommend doing this as well. It's all integrated. There's no magnets to fall out and destroy your expensive Cycle Electric rotor. We got a new premium regulator. We got, of course, our James gasket primary. We're going to do the handlebars now, do the new bushings. We're going to do what I call a Gorilla clamp. I think it's not a Gorilla brand. This is a Paul Yaffe's Bagger Nation clamp. Comes with the little clamps here to clamp for your bike. Now, I will tell you, you can buy these or you can make them yourself. You can actually drill holes, tap them, thread them, and then just go to the part store and get you some of those. That locks the bars in. But his bars kind of flop down, and we also got these LA chopper bars. And I'll talk a little bit about the height of those bars, what you can do, what you can't do, and all that. Here's my dad's helmet, if you're curious. That's where he hit. So that was the first thing to contact the road, was his head on that angle. And that's assuming why it fractured his neck. So let's get back to the bike. Okay, so the problem he's having with these bars, these stock bars, is they're worn out inside there, the little kind of gnarly groove things, and the bars will fold down, and he has to push them back up. Now, yeah, that can probably be corrected with just that clamp lock that I just showed you. However, he wanted to go a little higher. He wanted to go where his hands were just kind of even with the top here of the fairing. He didn't want to be up above the fairing. He also, I told him, okay, the stock bars on these model Street Glides are 8-inch. You can go up to 12s and not have to change out any of your cables, your clutch cable, your throttle cable, your brake cable, any of that. You can go up to 12s and still use factory things. Now, we'll have to reroute some things. Also, he's going with black bars, so he opted not to run these inside the bars. Just do them like this and kind of make them go behind, and they'll be still hidden. I'll mix in with the black there. So we're going to get into taking this apart. I'll show you how to do that step by step. Putting the new bars on, rerouting all of your cables and wires so that the 12-inch bars fit. Then I'm going to have the customer come up, set on the bike, position the bars where he wants them, where he feels comfortable. Let him put his feet on the floorboards, let him set back like he's cruising, and then get these bars set precisely where he wants. Make some marks and then clamp those down. If you're putting bars on yourself, make sure you do that. When you put them on there, put the clamp on, kind of, tighten one up here, maybe one down here, just so they don't fall down. But then also, set on the bike. Get the bars comfortable, where you just feel comfortable, where they're not too far up, where they're not too far back. Now with fairing, we have to, pay attention and be careful. We can't run our bars up too far because then it would rub against this. And these bars are setting right against this, but that's because I had to push them up when I was getting it on the lift because they're so loose. So they usually will not ride this close from factory. Another thing is the bars that we got, the LA chopper bars, they're made for fairing. So they come and they curve in this way and then curve up and come back up to here. They're not the meat hooks, meat hangers, whatever they're called. They do have the rounded, but they are 1 1/4 inch instead of the 1-inch stock. So it's going to be a really nice upgrade for him. He's going to keep the grips, keep the controls, keep the chrome up here. Now, before we start digging into the fairing, there's some things we need to do. Now, theoretically, with the key off, there's no power being supplied up here or behind the radio unit where we're going to unplug these harnesses and reroute them and things like that. But as an extra safety precaution, pull the side panel off and pull this maxi fuse out. I just want to show you, look, I have never seen a bike this clean to be this old. I mean, guys, we're talking 18 years old behind the fairing. It looks like it just come out of the factory. This is so wild. All right, another thing you need to do. Now, I am taking this wheel off, of course, to change the tire. So I've got this taped up here where the brake caliper won't scratch any of the paint here. Already got the calipers up. They're not hanging on this. So that's very, very important. So I'm ready to take the tire off, but I'm going to wait and go ahead and let's do the fairing. So I'm saying all that to say this. You can either take your fender off, but it's kind of a pain because I'm not sure if you can see that or not. There's little locking tabs, a little like a metal brace right here. It's got little locking tabs that lock in that bolt so that half-inch bolt doesn't back out. And they're a pain to get undone without worrying about scratching up any of your paint. And this bike is so immaculate, I don't even want to try that. So I'm going to lift this front up, move this stand out of the way, and just roll the tire out and put the new one back in. But if you're not taking the fender off, you want to cover this fender for sure, because this fairing, you know, you're going to be moving it, and you could drop a tool or even drop the headlight down on top of this fender. Another thing, certainly, definitely cover the tank. We're going to be working up close here, taking plastics off. The bars could fall down. A lot of things could happen. Cover your tank. And don't just use a t-shirt or something like that. Use something thick. I go to Harbor Freight and buy these moving blankets for like $4 or $5. Had this one forever. And I'll use that to cover the fender and to cover the tank. And then we're protected. Then, before we can start taking the fairing off, this has this bar, these passing light bars. And so we'll be taking these off as well. It's got these little nice chrome covers that was on kind of everything. Little caps. Take you a rag, a very soft rag, wrap those caps, and then take a pair of pliers and they should usually just kind of pull off. Unless somebody's glued them in, you know, really, really bad. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and cover the fender, cover the tank, and then start taking this off. I've got the maxi fuse pulled out. The bike is off. And now we can start taking this. We'll drop it kind of down out of the way, because understand, your outer fairing shell will not come off with these on. Now, if you have, most street glides don't have this. So if you don't have this, you're fine to go ahead and start taking your outer shell off once you've covered everything. But with this being the case, we're going to have to undo this in order to get the outer shell off so that we can disconnect the wires here that run up inside this shell. So this has to come down and kind of hang out while we take this outer shell off. How's the weather your way? It is hot here. Gonna be in the 90s all week. All right. And by using that soft rag, you don't run the risk of scratching these up, which is very important, or you'll be buying somebody a new set. Get this other side. And these are T-bits. I believe they're a T40. Yes. All right, now this one, we're going to take all the way out. Usually if you were just taking this off to do something, it's got a provision here. You can slide it off and get it out of the way. But with this outer fairing shell on, that's not going to be the case, because it's not going to move out enough to bring this down. So usually you have to take this all the way out, and then this just slides down. We'll leave this one in the top because that kind of holds everything together for us as well. Okay, so as you can see, that has indeed separated. And we'll just leave it like that for now until we can get this outer shell off. And that gave us enough room now that we can pull this outer shell off. The bolt's out here at the bottom, which holds this metal kind of dressing that goes underneath the outer fairing, kind of between the inner and outer as well. Okay, so now we're ready to take the outer shell off. And the outer shell is removed by one T-bit here one back in here, same on the other side, so 4 on the shell itself, and then 3 across top that actually hold your windshield on. So what I like to do is to go ahead and break those loose up top, the 3, but I'll leave this center one in, loose but in. That way the outer shell won't fall off on me. It's holding the headlight. It is kind of heavy on the bottom end. So we'll do that now. Start working on those. These are, usually they're Phillips screws, but these are actually Allen heads, and the chrome piece have been painted. All right, 5/32 on these. And then the center one here, I'm just going to loosen up. They're not very long bolts, so don't go crazy. You can even take it out just to get the windshield out, but the windshield should have slits in them. And this is not a stock windshield either. Now we can take this off, set it somewhere safe. It also has a bra on the front of it, which I think looks really good. And then we should be able to just kind of slide that up and off. Then we'll put our center bolt back in. There we go. Just to hold it up as we take those other ones off. All right, I can't remember if it's a T25 or 27, but we'll see which one it is. This is a 25. Well, I can see right here. Move this. Yeah, okay, it's a T25. Now, you don't want to use a gun to take these off or to put them on, because inside this outer shell, they're plastic tabs with a little metal threaded insert. And I've seen so many of these strip out, break over time. So you want to be very careful removing this. Now, the other one is kind of hidden up in here. Not too far back, but sometimes if you're doing this on the ground, it's easier to turn the handlebar to the right if you're going to be doing the left side, and then to the left if you're going to be doing the right side. But it's not, grossly out of the way. All right, that one wasn't even tight. That was just hanging out in there. Well, that was extremely loose too. That's surprising on this bike, because when I was changing out the charging system, taking that primary off, I think I was the first man in there after it come off the line. And it smelled like the rectifier was burnt up and the stator had some wires exposed. So it was definitely time for a charging system upgrade. And we went with a 50 amp, which will be great if he ever wants to, add any accessories or anything like that. I lost that one too. I think that went back behind the forks. Okay. So now our outer shell, all the 7 bolts or 6 bolts are out, and the top one I'm taking out right now. And now we can just take this outer shell completely off. It does have this bra. It's kind of holding it around the inner shell. I'll slide back a little. And now our outer shell is coming off. You do have your headlight assembly plug that you will want to unplug. Get it out of the way. And now our shell is coming off, and we'll go set it somewhere safe. And I'll get you in there and let you see what's going on the inside. All right, I got you a light sitting down here. Maybe that kind of helps you see. And here was the headlight that you just disconnected, and then the whole outer shell comes off. So stock radio, that's all your controls for the radio. This is a CB edition, usually on the Ultra Glides and things like that. Use the same radio. But everything in here looks good, and it looks stock, and it looks all right. While you're in here, might as well check these braces. These braces are bad. They're very thin. The bike gets a lot of vibration. And these braces will crack right here where they bend, going into this inner shell on both sides. Also, watch for your wires running across this. this is pretty sharp to have wires running across it. So make sure that all your wires are connected properly, not running over this here. If you have to run anything over this, don't run it under it. So just fix that immediately if you see anything running over this. On this side, everything looks good. It's still got the factory zip ties on it. You can tell those are factory by the way that they are. They're not ones you buy. Now, if you wanted to take this off, you would just unplug this here, run it out of this zip tie, and then you could remove this. And I think just for safety purposes, we will do that right now. See if I can get this out without cutting that factory zip tie. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. I'll do the same on the other side, and then we can set this aside. Feed that through. And now I'm going to have to cut this one here because it's pretty tight. And it looks like these passing lights were added on at some time because they are electrical taped together to go on there. Any touring bike can use these. Street glides usually don't have these, so this was an addition. Now we can get that out of the way and set it out somewhere safe. And now with inspecting the wires over here on this side, we do have a wire that is coming across this right here. And I want to show you exactly what I was talking about the dangers of this. All right, so I got you looking on the right side of the bike. All the wires on the left side were running under or down beside the this brace. And this brace is painted. It's not sharp, but you have to understand vibration over time. If there's anything laying on this, it will slowly cut away everything and eventually get down to the wire and then ground out whatever you've got running over this. And just to show you, I've not moved anything. I see already. Look at that. I'll try to zoom in when I go back and edit, but this has already gotten down to a red wire, which usually sends power, and it has rubbed right there on that little spot. So we will definitely be rerouting this, probably pushing it back, running a zip tie through here to hold this back off of this, and probably moving that as well. It doesn't look like it got down into the wire coating yet, so we caught it just in time. And this is the factory loom here, and they ran it right there, and that is a no-no. Here's a better maybe shot of this bend here. These often break, and there's upgrades you can get to do those, or you can make a little 90-degree bracket, run it long, drill in here, and then drill or a hole to run this original bolt back through. But we will be fixing that, and actually I want to fix it right now just so I don't forget it. And it looks like that was the main wire, your hot wire, main hot wire. So I'll run a zip through that and then we'll fix that issue. Okay, so we got that issue fixed. I just run a zip tie in the hole, looped it around that harness and back out the hole. And now that is safe and secure. I tell you, it was probably about 5,000 miles away from spending hours of chasing an electronical gremlin all through this bike that was caused right here from the factory. So make sure if you have wires running over here and you look at them and say, oh, they're okay, move them. Run them under here, run them down the side. Do something. Another thing to watch out for and to inspect and check while you're in here are these as well that hold up not only your speaker, but this cuts down on vibration because of the weight of the speaker. So these are known to break right here and even over here. So inspect those, check those, make sure they're good and tight. They're not very sturdy. They do the job, but just inspect them. Look at both sides, make sure everything is good. Now down at the bottom of the bike, we can just simply wiggle this down and off there. And we can set this to the side. This is just a cover, cosmetic cover that kind of cleans all this up underneath. There. A good thing to do while you're in here, there's a zert tip there. Grease that neck bearing up. All right, now we're ready to undo the inner fairing so that it can go forward. What's going to happen now, understand, when I take these bolts out and I kind of lift the fairing up a little bit and just move it forward so that I can access the bolts under here for the handlebar, you're going to have this piece right here of the inner fairing that's going to swing up, and it's going to swing into the bottom of your tank. So when you cover your tank, make sure you cover down here, that excess hangs off, so that when this comes back, it will not scratch up down here. Yeah, nobody could probably see it if you put a nick in it, but just take a minute to make sure your cover comes on down, and that'll save you from scratching that up. Now also, we have to take out this cover here to expose the other two bolts that are more forward in the bike or backwards in the bike. And they're held on here with a T25 here and on the other side as well. And that's connected to this inner fairing only. It's not connected to the forks or the frame or nothing like that. This is only connected to the inner fairing. So you've got to take these off in order for the inner fairing to come on back. So let's go ahead and do that. Already taking the other side off. Take this one off. Sometimes they might set on a little lip up here underneath this fairing. This one does not. So this fairing is free now to kind of come back a little. We don't have to move it much, but we do have to move it. So I'm going to go ahead and cover the tank now. We're ready for that. And I'm going to run it down all the way around both sides there, nice and neat. Now we can go ahead and take this bolt out that was holding the inner fairing up and on both sides. And now this inner fairing is ready to move back out of the way. Remember, we're not taking it off, okay? We're just moving it back out of the way, just enough to access up top where we need to. Now, when you do that, understand how this works. The bolts that run in here, that held the passing lights on and the little chrome cover, run right in here. This bracket here, this long bracket that goes all the way up here, is curved. See, there's a lip on the inside. So it's curved around a little lip down here on your bottom triple tree. So if you just go to yanking on this, you're gonna break something. So you have to be cautious of that little lip and maybe even pull this out a little bit to get that to come on back. So if you're having trouble pulling this back, that would be your culprit on both sides. Okay, so I've got this set back now, and you can see the top two clamps there. And you can even see this bottom one here and this one here. However, with this cover on, you can't really access them without damaging this. I just don't like to leave this on. Some people do. So I like to take this cover off. But we do have it set back enough. And this isn't coming, all the way backwards, hitting this, because we still have all of our cables and stuff hooked up. But I did have to raise the bracket up over this on one side and do the same on this side to get it up over this. And then it kind of moved back on me. But we've got plenty of room right there to do what we need to do to get these bars off. But we do have to take this centerpiece off, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So there's a little trick to taking the key cylinder out. Number one, you have to have the key. So he had lost his key. He had to go to Harley, verify he owned the bike. They gave him a key. There's a little tab underneath here that you have to push up that unlocks this whole cylinder to come out. But to do that, you have to turn this over to lock so you can access that little bitty button, and you have to turn the key over past unlock. And I can do this actually with my finger. Usually you have to use a little flathead screwdriver. And then this whole cylinder comes out. It also comes out with a spring in there, so leave that spring in. Leave this set exactly the way it was so that you know how to go back in there. If you move this, those drums will be off. And I've got a tool that'll line those drums up, but if you don't, you'll go mad trying to get this back on. The reason you take this off and you take this nut and this nut off and the spacer is so that you can take this cover up, disconnect it from the accessory switch or any other switches you got, and get this out of the way. Could you do it without removing this? You could, but you're probably going to crack this, booger it up, especially if you've got your bike painted a special custom paint. You don't want to do that. It's just not enough room, too risky. So just take these steps to take that out. Here's the little button. It's over on the side of the unlock. So you'll go past that, push that button. It'll stay compressed up as long as this is in that position. Then you pull this out, keep the spring in there, set it aside. Then when you're ready to go back in, you kind of just drop it back in where it goes. Twist the key, and that, while this is pushed down, twist the key and it pops that lock back out. Test it a couple times, pull on it, and you're good to go. Now for this, I usually just grab a croissant wrench and put in there just to take this top cap here off. It's usually not under a lot of pressure. You'll spin that off. This is grooved to a certain position. So that goes on just like that. If you try to put it in this way, it won't fit. If you try to put it in upside down, it won't fit. So there's really only one way that this goes back in. So you really don't have to worry about the orientation on that. And now you'll have this little spacer that'll slide up, a little plastic spacer as well. I try to keep all together so I'm oriented correctly. And then this can come up once we undo the assembly or accessory housing. Now this you can pop up as well. It's just got tabs there. Be careful because these usually get brittle and they break. And now we can set this aside. And now we can unplug. This was added probably for those passing lights. And slide that up and out. There's a little connector there for the accessory light. And now that's out of the way. And now look how much more real estate and room we got to work in here. So as we're setting the bars, this would be great to make sure we've got them lined up left to right well, and access to cut our zip ties out. We don't have to try to monkey anything in there and worry about scratching things. So I'm very happy doing it this way. It takes a little bit more time, but do it well. Okay, so now that we're down to the bars, we need to go ahead and start taking off our controls, our grips, anything connected to this bar before we loosen it or take it off. Now what you're going to find, if you go to extend bars, you're going to have trouble with this clutch cable because the clutch cable runs in through this fairing up here. There's a little grommet you can buy that's like a little cover that snaps in there and covers it. Because as we extend, I'm going to try to make it work through here, but usually you'll have to come out through here where these wires to the left-hand controls go and feed your clutch cable up to give you enough room. But I think if we reroute things, we'll be okay. I see that there's plenty of room to reroute it. That'll save us. So let's just start unplugging these controls from the other side and showing you how to reroute it so that we've got the room to go 4 inches higher. So we've got our zip ties off here. We'll wiggle and follow this cable around, and you can see here that it loops down and loops back up here and all the way back up here. Now you might be tempted to run your wire through here, but remember the sharp edges. We don't want that. There's enough slack here. I don't think we're going to have to reroute anything because we've got tons of room. Maybe we can bring it behind the clutch cable, but we're going to have to move the clutch cable anyway. But when I pull on this and take the slack out, you can see how much room we have. And so now going up 4 inches won't be an issue. And it's the same on the other side as well. This is the right hand controls. And look how far it's coming down. And if we pull over here on this, we've got plenty of room as well, hanging down. Has plenty of slack here that we can take out and move up, and I think it'll be fine as well. It's not zip tied to anything. Now the brake line. The brake line comes down and goes, it's a hard line. It goes down, but it goes down into a soft line. The soft line here has plenty of space as well. I think as we move it up, it'll be fine. If not, we'll have to get an extended brake line, and it is one piece. So it goes down into the T underneath the bottom of the triple tree, and it's one piece. So it goes from hard up at the reservoir and cylinder down to soft, down to hard, and these two hard lines split out, run into each our brake caliper. So if you didn't have enough slack, you'd need to replace the whole shebang, brake line wise. This bike doesn't have ABS, so that's good. We can bleed it quite easily, but usually there's enough room we can do a 4-inch. If not, we'll have to stop, order the brake line extended kit, and put that on. So I think I have to unplug my controls at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and take my controls off, T25 I believe here, and then on the reservoir a T27, same on that side over there as well. The clutch cable will let all the slack out of the cable. That'll give us room to take the clutch cable off of the housing bracket so we can run it out, reroute it, run it back through. We're going to try that first and see how that works. Then, once everything's off the bars, we can simply unbolt the bars, take them off, put our new bars on, try to get them kind of, you know, where I think they would be. He's a taller guy. I'm 6'1", but he's taller than I am. So I might kind of try to push them up a little bit. Not where they were when you saw them in the video, but a little bit up from where I'm comfortable at. Bring him up here and let him feel them before we bolt them down, lock them down, and put that lock on there. The throttle cable to come off, you don't have to adjust the throttle cables to get this off. What you can do is get everything off the bike except your throttle. Then you can move the bar, unbolt the bar, move it this way to the left. That'll give you enough slack to just slide this off. The housing, the control housing, and the grip to just slide off. That saves you from having to readjust your throttle and trying to get it just right how it was. The more we can keep how it was for him, the better it'll feel to him, because a lot of things wouldn't be changed. So unfortunately, we do have to change the cable on the clutch, but we will kind of feel where it's at now and try to set it back the way that he had it set up. But that's an easy tip so you don't have to monkey with these adjusters on the throttle cable. You can just move the bar over, and that'll give you enough room to just slide the grip and the housing completely off, and then slide the new bar on that, and then move the new bar over. Okay, so I went ahead and got the old bars off, and you can see where they've been rubbing, and pretty bad. I did go ahead and I slid the grip off, and then I went ahead and took the grip out just because I don't want to lose these. If you ever lost one of these, you understand. So just for safety reasons, precautions, I went ahead and just slid the grip out and took those little brass lockers out. And this is going to be plenty of slack to get up where he wants it. I zip tied the brake reservoir up here so that it wasn't just hanging down. We might have to, even this here has quite a bit of shape to it. We might have to kind of reshape this a little straighter. And then the clutch cable, I rerouted. I'll show you that. So the clutch cable used to come up through here, ran over this bracket here, then up, straight shot through there. I pulled it out and I ran it under the bracket because once this sets up, it won't be such a bad angle. And then it can come out the original hole here, which I got to stick that grommet back in. And then we got plenty of room up here to turn for our lever. So I think everything's going to work out. The oat bar is sitting over here, and we did not order him grips, and this is glued in. So I'm going to try to save on it. If not, we'll have to get him some new grips from Harley. You can just go there and pick them out. But now we're ready for the new bars to go on. So I got the bars off and I forgot something. My new bushings, handlebar bushings. So I'm going to put the bars back on, lock them down, and then replace the bushings. Now the reason you do that is so that these don't turn while you're trying to undo the bolt that runs up in here. Then I can put these back in, tighten everything back down, then take off my clamps again and take the old bar off. So I should have done that before I took the bar off, but you know, hindsight's what, 50, 70? I don't know. So let me throw the bars back on there, tighten them down, then we can start taking these bushings off. Okay, so I got the handlebars back on, got them locked down so that our risers don't turn because they're a two-piece riser. If you're doing this on the lift, you're going to have an issue. If you're doing it on the ground, no problem. But on the lift, you're going to have an issue. Being that when Harley made this frame, they put this piece under here that covers the bolt you got to get out for your risers. There's no way you can get an open wrench in there, but how you going to turn it? And then the bolt can't come out because of this. If you're on the ground, no issue. You just turn the bike hard to the right, that exposes this bolt. Now, fortunately for us, we're changing the tire anyway. So I went ahead and pulled the tire out. And now we can rotate to the right, and that exposes that bolt to go ahead and back it out and get it out and change those bushings. Bolts are 3/4 inch. Usually you can turn it enough to grab it and work on it out here. All right, a lot of times if you have extended bars, they'll get real loose on you, and a lot of times it's just going there under here and tightening up this bolt here. If they're good and tight and the handlebars still have play in them, and you can feel that it's not the risers or the handlebar clamp moving, then your issue is going to be in your bushings. But a lot of times it's just tightening up this bolt that gets loose. I've often thought why Harley did the bolts from the bottom like that, because if these ever did come loose and backed out and caught, you wouldn't be able to turn your bike. All right, so we'll turn the bike and we'll do the other side. Now when you start to do this other side, realize what you're taking off. This releases the handlebar and the risers. So everything is going to twist and turn on you. And then when you're completely out, the handlebar and the risers are going to be loose and are going to be falling off. So be very careful. Kind of hold the handlebar so you have some control over it. Take that bolt off. Now we can take our riser and bars completely off. Okay, now this bolt on the right side has a standard bushing chrome cover, but it has this big ginormous washer. Why? I don't know. Now on some bikes you'll have a ground wire as well with an eyelet on it running under here that grounds the front end to your frame. When you go to put this big washer back on, you'll have to set it up in there and then put your bolt up through, because there's not enough room to clear it, even with it all the way to the left, to get this big washer past where you need it to. But now that that's out, we can just take our little chrome cover off. The kit comes with new bushings and new spacer, new chrome tips, and the bushings are a whole lot better than what we got here. Let me show you the difference. They're made out of a different material, and I just think they're a little better quality. You know, these have grooves in them, and while that might seem like a good idea for it not to spin, it's actually not, because those grooves can wear down, and then you just imagine if just one groove wears down, you've lost all your tension. So these are a lot better. They're a lot sturdier, stronger, stouter. They're actually made for bigger bars. And now with that out, you can usually just take your finger or a little socket and push down, and this will come on out the bottom, your spacer and your bushing. And then the spacer and the bushing comes out. You can see how that's twisted like that. So it was about time to replace these anyway. Now, throw these away, or you could use them as grommets. Save these. I can't tell you how many times I've used these as spacers for bolts, and they work great. Now, they make all kinds of different bushings, so I like to take my bolt, verify that my bushing is the correct size, and then we're good to go. So with just the bushing, you'll stick it in there. It'll go in nice and easy. You'll go ahead and put the bottom one in. If I can hold my mouth right. And the reason you do that is because once you put the spacer in, it expands that bushing out. And it's going to drive you nuts trying to put it in without that on there. So now this will just kind of hold the bottom bushing, and this will just kind of slide snugly down in there. It might need some persuasion. And then our bolt, once we draw it in, it will draw that bushing down to where it should be. And these new ones have a bushing that is different. I'll show you. Okay, this is the old bushing here. It's just a spacer pretty much. But the new bushings, they have a beveled edge here on the outside. And on this side, they have a beveled edge on the inside. So once you put your bushings in, you drive this spacer in with the beveled end on the outside. And because it's beveled, it doesn't booger up the spacer if you take a soft mallet and drive it in. They're really nice, really handy to install. I would suggest getting that. The brand is Alloy Art Manufacturer. Now, I've used different brands before, but these are pretty nice there. And there's, I guess, the part number, Dennis Kurt part number. But they work really, really well. And so I'll go and do the other side. Then we can go ahead and put our risers back on, bolt, red Loctite, bolt everything down, torque it down. Then we can go ahead and take the old bars off and set our new bars on. Okay, so I got the bushings in on this side as well with the spacer in. And here's that little ground wire I was talking about. It's on the left side of the bike. For some reason I was thinking it was on the right side. So you guys let me know. I think maybe some of the older Softails are on the right side on the bottom. But anyway, this one's here on this side. So on the other side of the riser, you will have a washer. The washer is designed to be the same as this, so that when you put this on, one riser is not a little bit higher than the other. So make sure this goes back on the other side of your riser when you put your bars back on. All right, we can take our new caps now and just stick them on top there. We'll get some fresh red Loctite. Way too much. That's perfect. We're going to put this right side in first. So open up, open up. Remember, it's got that big fat washer on it that I've got to kind of hold up there, wiggle in there to get everything else up. Now we can go ahead and set these up where they're going to go, and then go to one side and start tightening down the bolt, and then of course torquing it down. There's my ratchet. Where'd you go, little ratchet? Where are you hiding? I just had you in my hand. You were just in my hand, and now you are gone. Well, my ratchet has quit on me. This is real. Oh, it's just taking a nap in the floor. All right, I'm going to use a short socket on this so that my bolt head doesn't drop down in my socket. Now on the lift, this takes a little finagling. To hold everything where nothing falls. I want to turn it with my hand just till it catches. I want to come over here and do the same. You kind of want them to go down, you know, evenly. You don't want to run one all the way in. I think we're ready now to start tightening with the wrench. And it'll seem tight, but it's drawing. Oh my goodness. Guess what I forgot? Shoot. I forgot this. I know you was hollering at me, but I can't hear you on this side of YouTube. Wish I could, that'd be cool. Get out to slide this up in and then up. Yes. And I'll have to do the other side because I didn't put that spacer in the other side as well. Shoot. All right, I'm going to leave that kind of loose right there. I'm going to come over here and repair this side now. Fix my mistake. All right. Put our washer in. All right. And I'll run this back in. Get this run up a little bit more, and then we will look up our torque specs. All right, looks like my bushing bolts, or what I guess they're called riser bolts. They are from 30 to 40 foot-pounds. I want to split the difference and go 35. Guys, that ain't feeling right. Let me drop down to 30. 30's within spec. Maybe it's just those bushings compressing, but I don't know. Just don't like that feeling. All right, there's 30. You know, it's real scary when you're using a torque wrench and it just keeps torquing and keeps torquing. You're like, oh gosh, it should have torqued by now. But I guess with those rubber bushings, it, you know, takes a minute to compress them down. 30 and 30, all right. And then the riser clamps are torqued to I try to do mine 18, 20 is the max, 16 to 20. So I go, let's go 15, 16, 17, 18 on those. Okay, so now that these are back on, the bushings are in, we can take our old bars back off, move this back out of the way, move the controls kind of out of the way. Go ahead and zip those off and put our new bars on now. And I don't know, maybe it's just a habit, but I like keeping these bolts oriented to what hole they were torqued down in. We won't be reusing those clamps. We've got a nice fancy new clamp now. And then these can come off. Save your old clamps, you never know. You never know when you're building a custom chopper and just need you a set of real minimum looking clamps. Our knee bars come wrapped up real good, so what I'm going to do is leave the wrap on until we get these adjusted and set where he wants them. Then I can take them off. That helps them not to get damaged in any way. I go grab the new riser. I'm not going to put the little things in there yet. Raise this up. I'm going to get it centered best I can, eyeball it. Put the clamp on. Let me get one kind of locked in there. Mama always said when I was growing up to use my head, using my head to hold the bars up. So thank you, Mama. All right, those will be set. When the customer comes up, gets on the bike, we can loosen them up, kind of move them where he thinks he wants them comfortable. But as far as length-wise now, clutch cable is going to fit, I hope, just right. Now, if not, we will have to run them out of this grommet hole and through here. That'll give us a little bit extra room. But I think it's going to be tight, but right. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to call the customer, go ahead and get him up here, and have him set on the bike, see where he wants them. But I really like it. That clamp turned out looking really nice, and the bars are going to look really good. That's 4 inches, guys, so it's going from 8s to 12s. Quite a bit of height. You know, you guys think, well, I want at least, 16 inches or 14 inches, but look, when you go from 8 to 12, that's a big rise. He might even just want to send those back and do 10s. I don't know. That really puts them up there pretty high. So we'll see. Of course, when the fairing gets set up there, the fairing's going to raise up. It's setting down. So when he comes up here, I'm going to get them set where he grabs them and then moves them where he wants them. I'll lock them down. Then I'm going to move the fairing up to where the fairing is going to set. Make sure we got clearance. Make sure he's happy with that height. And then we'll go from there. All right, so the customer come up and we ran into a little snag. Once we set the fairing back up here, there was not enough slack in this cable, even after rerouting it, to get it to reach where I thought would be all right. So we ran the cable, rerouted it up in here. He doesn't like that. He doesn't want that. Of course, this will go down, but he doesn't want it that close to the head. Can't blame him there. So that would bring it up here in the front, and then when this is pushed out, the cable would kind of be hanging out. You can still see your gauges and get to your buttons, but it's right there in the middle. So what we're going to do is buy extended clutch cable. Now we're going up 4 inches on the bar, but when you buy any of your extensions, buy them a couple of inches more. Don't go crazy. Some bars say 14 inches. They might be a little bit above that. And then if you only buy 4+ cables, then you're running still a little short. Then that will let us route this clutch cable back to its factory position and bring it up there. I also noticed I didn't like the idea of the brake cable being tight, so we're going to go ahead and do a 4+ brake cable. And while we're at it, I said, hey, let's just go ahead and do 4+ throttle cables. Though the throttle cables are going to reach, of course, the fairing's pushed back. But he said, let's just go ahead and do 4+ on the throttle cables. So what we're going to be doing is replacing the clutch cable, which is a pretty good job. So pretty much all this has come off. The exhaust system, 4 boards, the nice fancy cover, and the transmission cover comes off in order to get the clutch cable out and then replace it. Now the newer models have a 2-piece cable, and that's really nice, but the older ones don't. So you have to do all that just to change out a cable. And then the throttle cables, of course, will be getting into the fuel injection, but when this bike starts up, it's got a little sputter, and he said it's kind of always had that as best he can remember. But there's a port on here that you can actually clean out that could get clogged up and cause some sputtering issues on startup. He liked where the bars set themselves once we got the fairing up, so we're going to lock those down where they are, order the cables, and then when that comes in, put all this back together. Now, today is Tuesday, and while I got almost a month ahead on Friday post videos, I got right back behind again because our new granddaughter, we went and visited them and met our new granddaughter. Then my dad and his wreck, and been with him for some days. And then doing just like minor things that kind of put me back behind. So today's Tuesday. If I want to have a video for Friday, I've already got this mostly edited, except for the part I'm recording right now. It's already over an hour long, so I'm going to have to do a part 2. I know that stinks. If you're in the middle of doing bars, you have to wait a week for part 2. But I want to show you every detail. I'm kind of glad that this happened. Most bikes now, when you go from 8s to 12s, they're fine. There's not really much you can't reroute and fix. But on this Street Glide, this 06, there's no getting around it. The clutch you could have got around, wouldn't have been factory. The brake, I'm not sure if we could have got it to reach and fit properly. So now you get to see every little detail of taking off. What does it take to replace a clutch cable? It's quite a bit, you'll see. What does it take to replace brake lines? And it's the whole brake system, the whole line from the front down to the calipers. It comes all in one piece. What does it take to change throttle wires, cables on a Street Glide fuel injection? So we're going to go through all that, and it's going to be a fun time. So I want to take time to go through each and every step with you. That's what my channel is all about. It's not about, hey, here's 10 minutes of how to do something, build a bike in 10 minutes. No, it's how do I do this job? How do I do it properly? How do I check things? How do I torque things? So it's a slow process. So hopefully, depending on when the parts get in, hopefully part 2 will be out the next Friday as well. If something happens and I post another video next Friday, I got the seat coming up. I've got a soft tail end that has rocker boxes leaking, both front and rear. So we're going to do a video on that. We've got a revival coming up of a bike hadn't been registered in over 11 years. A nice Road King. So that's coming up. So if this doesn't come out the next Friday, part 2, I'll just go ahead and upload it whenever I'm done with this bike. That way you've got it, and we can get back ahead on our schedule of putting out hopefully some good content for you guys. Now listen, before we kind of close shop for this, let me ask you 2 questions. Number 1, what's your favorite bike? For a long time, I had an 06 Street Glide, and this was my favorite bike. Not this bike, but the 06 Street Glide was my favorite bike. Loved the way it rode. My wife rode with me. She loved it. Then, of course, I got the Panhead, and I got other bikes I would buy, fix, ride for a year, sell. I'm really thinking about the Road Glide. I've heard they ride amazing. I've rode a couple of them myself, and just on test rides, and man, I think I want a Road Glide, but I'm not sure. My wife wants to start riding some with me. She can't on Lucy. Well, she could, but she wouldn't like it. And so I think a Road Glide would be best for us. But what's your favorite bike? Also, secondly, what kind of content do you guys want to see me doing? You know, I didn't post my dad's video to get as many views as it got. It really shocked me. You know, people are like, oh, you need to start doing videos when people wrecking and then analyzing it. No, I didn't post that video to get a bunch of views. I posted that video because you guys were interested in the build. We had spent a long time building that bike up. Well, not a long time, but some time building that bike up, getting it road ready, and then wanted to show you the damage to it and give you a chance to pray for my dad. So we will keep doing what this channel has always been doing. Fixing bikes, finding old bikes, getting them back on the road, and having a lot of fun. So thank you so much for hanging out in the shop with me today. And tell your mama now I said hi.